was very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president.
The secret behind Epstein's world. In the shadows of the world's most powerful circles, a silence speaks louder than words. Ghislaine Maxwell, once the confidante of Jeffrey Epstein, has remained quiet, her secrets locked away behind prison walls. But the echoes of her actions and the man she enabled still ripple through politics, finance, and celebrity. Emails, money trails, private connections, all pointing to a web more vast, more shocking than most could imagine. How deep did these connections really go? How many people turned a blind eye or were knowingly complicit? Tonight we unravel the hidden corridors of power, where manipulation, exploitation, and secrecy thrived. The world's most powerful people exposed. Welcome to the secret behind Epstein's world.
Never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that. I never saw it, and I never imagined it.
For example, President Clinton never received a massage.
I don't believe he did.
They're developing news late today with the associate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, asking a federal court to toss out her sex trafficking conviction from 2021. Maxwell says in her filing that substantial evidence has emerged, she says, showing she didn't get a fair trial. Remember, Maxwell was given that 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking minors. And this, let's talk about what this is, right? Remember, she went all the way up to the Supreme Court to try to get her sentence overturned or to get an appeal. Didn't happen. This is kind of a last-ditch push now, right as the Justice Department is up against the deadline to publicly release the Epstein files that it has by this Friday.
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question and any related questions. My habeas petition is pending in the Southern District of New York. I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, is it your intention to answer every question put to you by the committee today with the assertion of your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
The answer to that is yes also. So just as her lawyer, I'll tell you, yes, that's her.
Ghislaine Maxwell was never just a socialite at parties. She was the strategist behind the scenes, shaping access to some of the world's wealthiest and most influential individuals. Long before Epstein's crimes became public knowledge, Maxwell was orchestrating events for the Clinton Global Initiative, an organization bringing together world leaders, CEOs, and philanthropists. Emails reveal her meticulous planning, scheduling meetings, managing introductions, and subtly influencing agendas. Leaders who shaped nations, executives controlling billions, they all corresponded with her. She was in essence the gatekeeper, not merely present but pulling the strings. And when you look closer at the attendees of these glamorous events, you begin to see a pattern, a network, carefully curated where influence flowed, secrets were traded, and loyalties were tested. Maxwell's fingerprints are on every high-profile introduction, every whispered suggestion, every opportunity that Epstein capitalized on. By the time the public ever learned the extent of Epstein's abuses, Maxwell had already cemented her role, not as an outsider, but as a conductor of this powerful orchestra. And the deeper we go, the more unsettling the picture becomes.
I think we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture here, which is what was really going on with Epstein? Because Epstein was more than just a serial pedophile and a pervert. He was an incredibly powerful man who was, by the way, in multiple instances in the files that were just released, talking about his work for Mossad, talking about his work for the Rothschilds. I mean, it just goes on and on. And so, can we discuss the blackmail operation that was taking place and which government, that's a special ally of the United States, put him up to it? And do we really want to be allies with a country that kidnaps young girls for rape just so they can have dirt on American politicians and control our foreign policy? That's the bigger underlying issue here that no one's talking about.
Yeah. Money is the lifeblood of influence, and Epstein understood this better than most. In the mid-2000s, financial records reveal transactions that raise uncomfortable questions. $1 million wire sent for a Clinton Foundation project. The source? Murky at best. The path? Carefully obscured. And behind the wire transfers there were conversations, plans, and meetings, often with Maxwell present, guiding the process. Epstein didn't merely facilitate, he leveraged. He turned philanthropy into power. But the plot thickens. These financial dealings predate Epstein's infamous 2006 charges, and long before Maxwell faced trial in 2022. What were they really funding? Charitable endeavors, or mechanisms for influence, subtle, silent, and nearly invisible to the public eye? Documents hint at lavish events, international projects, and financial moves that placed Epstein and Maxwell in the orbit of global elites. And as the money flowed, so did access to presidents, to moguls, to individuals whose decisions shaped the world. The question lingers: how much of this was coincidence, and how much was calculated? The truth, as always, hides just beyond the ledger's lines.
What you're dealing with here is an international intelligence web. Take his role in Iran-Contra. That was illicit arms trafficking and money laundering for a CIA activity that violated international law. In that one operation alone, you have the CIA in the U.S., you have Israeli intelligence, you have UK intelligence, and you have Saudi intelligence. That's 4 different countries' intelligence agencies running through this single person. So if the CIA wants to, or DOD or NSC wants to protect its relationship with those countries, it's probably got to get a consensus with those intelligence agencies as well.
Mike. The US Justice Department has released transcripts of interviews conducted with Jeffrey Epstein's imprisoned former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, this comes as the Trump administration is really scrambling to present itself as transparent amid a fierce backlash over an earlier refusal to disclose a trove of records from the sex trafficking case.
Well, Maxwell told a top Justice Department official that she never saw President Donald Trump in an, quote, inappropriate setting, and was not aware of any client list belonging to Epstein. Mr. Trump knew Epstein socially in the 90s and early 2000s.
I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
Okay, for more on that, we're joined now by Corey Alpert, who is a US political expert. He did previously serve in the Biden-Harris administration for 3 years in the executive office of the president. Corey, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can I ask you first about the background of all this and why now? Why has the Justice Department released these interviews now?
So these interviews happened a couple of days ago. I think you saw a huge flurry of activity from the Trump administration on Ukraine. You saw meetings with Putin and Zelensky. That seems to have stalled out. There's no action right now. And the U.S. Congress comes back in about 10 days on September 2nd. So I think what you're seeing right now is an attempt by the Trump administration to get ahead of the story, for Congress to come back with what the Trump administration positions as more information, although I'm certain we can get more into that. They're trying to position that ahead of the U.S. Congress coming back into session.
You flagged that right. I do want to get into more of that. So as you rightly said, Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker, interviewed for 2 days by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. What have we learnt from those interviews?
So off the bat, Todd Blanche is the Deputy U.S. Attorney General after having served as Donald Trump's personal attorney. That's already highly unusual. When you read through these transcripts, it's remarkable, one, that there are very few redactions, which to me says that there was some degree of coaching here. There were obviously the headline here is that she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate, that he was a perfect gentleman. These all seem to echo talking points out of Trump's defense. There was one interesting point that I wanted to note, that Maxwell denied recruiting young women from Trump's club, which was a claim that Trump made about why his relationship with Epstein fell apart. So we do see some friction between the two accounts. But to me, this really reads as part of Maxwell's attempt to get out of her 20-year sentence here.
I just wonder, in the eye of the public, though, as we said a moment ago, the release appears to be a way for the Trump administration to be transparent. There's been a fierce backlash over an earlier refusal to disclose records. Do you think, in the public eye, this potentially looks good for the US president if Ghislaine Maxwell has herself said in these interviews that she never saw him in a, quote, inappropriate setting with Jeffrey Epstein?
I think it does, and especially, again, at a time where the U.S. Congress is out of session. There's no chance of tomorrow, a congressional hearing about this. This will sort of sit and languish over the next 10 days before Congress comes back in, where Trump really can control the narrative on this. So this will be, of course, be playing all over U.S. media, where people, and especially those in Trump's base who've been nervous and concerned about this case, are now only going to be hearing these stories about Maxwell essentially saying that Trump did nothing wrong. The question that I think a lot of us are going to be asking is whether or not that sticks, whether or not this question of a list, which has really stuck around now for several months, and especially in these last couple of weeks, whether that question is going to continue to persist, especially once.
After years behind closed doors, Maxwell's voice, though limited, emerged in legal proceedings. Invoking the Fifth Amendment, she carefully navigated questions, aware that each word could unravel layers of hidden truth. Her lawyers hinted at a willingness to disclose secrets, but only under very specific conditions: a pardon, cooperation, protection. What could she reveal about Epstein's industry ties, about potential political cover-ups, about the silent corridors where influence operated unchallenged? Each statement, each legal maneuver, only raises more questions. The public sees a woman in prison, but behind the headlines, Maxwell holds a ledger far more consequential: the names, the connections, the moments that may never see daylight. And the world watches, wondering just how much of the truth will she ever tell.
Do you know whether, for example, President Clinton ever received a massage?
I don't believe he did.
And what makes you say you don't believe he did?
Well, because I don't, so that's a good question. The time that Epstein and President Clinton spent together, the only times, I believe, well, obviously they traveled. There was that, they went on the plane 26 times or whatever. That would be one journey. So they spent time on the plane together, and I don't believe there was ever a massage on the plane. So that would have been the only time that I think that President Clinton could have even received a massage, and he didn't, because I was there.
Speculation runs rampant. Epstein, some claim, was more than a financier and predator. Some suggest he was a tool, a covert asset within intelligence networks, Israeli connections, possible links to the MSAD. And then there's Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, a man whose life intersected with the KGB, Mossad and U.S. intelligence agencies. Espionage, secrets, shadow operations, the parallels are impossible to ignore. Epstein's death, shrouded in controversy, fuels endless theories. Surveillance footage rumored to exist but never released. Questions without answers. Was Epstein's network merely a social playground for the elite? Or was it a calculated system designed to gather leverage, secrets, and control? The deeper the connections, the murkier the waters. Intelligence, espionage, and global power. The pieces suggest a picture far darker than most dare to imagine. One thing is certain: the truth may never fully surface.
Bill Gates, on the question of his close friend Jeffrey Epstein, Gates was telling us, well, he's dead, so who cares? But thankfully, for once, the media did something right, and today asked Bill Gates about Jeffrey Epstein anyway. And here's how that went.
One of the issues that's dogged you is that of your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you regret the relationship that you maintained with him against Melinda's advice and wishes?
Oh, I've said that you're going way back in time. But yeah,
new audience.
I will say for the, over 100th time, I shouldn't have had dinners with him.
Epstein had a way of sexually compromising people. Is that what Melinda was warning you about?
No. I mean, no, I had dinner with him, and that's all.
Yeah, it was just dinner. What my ex-wife said about our divorce and Jeffrey Epstein had nothing to do with sex. So what did his ex-wife, this is Bill Gates, one of the world's richest men, a guy who got rich selling horrible software and then buying up all our farmland and forcing medicine on you don't want. What did his ex-wife say about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, we actually have the tape. Watch this carefully.
It was also widely reported that Bill had a friendship or business or some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein, and that you were not, that was very upsetting to you. Did that play a role in the divorce at all in this process?
Yeah, as I said, it's not one thing, it was many things. But I did not like that he'd had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you made that clear to him?
I made that clear to him. I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterwards.
So Bill Gates' wife is describing a man, her former husband, who was somehow addicted to seeing this guy, Jeffrey Epstein. Why is that? Why would he keep going back to the point his wife had to stage a kind of intervention by going with him? And why do we keep taking Bill Gates seriously? He's very rich, of course, but that's not a reason to treat him.
Epstein's influence didn't stop with Maxwell or with a single elite circle. It radiated outward, touching politicians, billionaires, and media moguls alike. Emails and documents paint a picture of manipulation, of favors traded, reputations leveraged, and power quietly secured. Blackmail tactics, social climbing, invitations that doubled as opportunities for control. The network operated above the law, above scrutiny, above consequence. Here was a hidden class, moving in plain sight, shielded by wealth and status, yet leaving breadcrumbs that would eventually unravel. Every connection exposed, every secret uncovered, hints at a system where power was currency, and the cost of exposure could be catastrophic. And the question that haunts investigators and the public alike: how many more layers remain buried, waiting to surface?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody.
Donald Trump couldn't be clearer. He refuses to answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein that he himself promised he will answer.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would.
People can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises.
Yeah, right.
But it seems this silence is no accident. Right now, with the spotlight on Israel's war on Gaza, Epstein's story has become not just the mysterious death of a gross sex offender and his unconfirmed client list. Now, people are questioning alleged links to an Israeli foreign intelligence agency at the heart of it all, Mossad, and the serious revelations this could uncover about foreign influence at the highest levels of power. So what is this Israeli link in the Epstein scandal, where fractures appear to be only deepening within the MAGA support base? At a recent conservative summit, Trump's own MAGA base exploded in fury over the so-called Epstein files. Epstein is currently being tied to a range of public figures: the Clintons, Trump, Prince Andrew, Michael Jackson, Stephen Hawking, even by his own MAGA supporters. They want the full truth, aka the release of a full Epstein client list, and they want Attorney General Pam Bondi fired for burying it. For months, President Trump and his allies promised new revelations about Jeffrey Epstein. And back in February, Bondi had even insisted that the client list was sitting on her desk.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
But when the much-hyped documents were released by the Department of Justice and the FBI, they included no client list and no new information. They claimed there's no client list or credible blackmail evidence against Epstein. This led to significant backlash, with major news outlets referring to Bondi's botched handling of the Epstein files. Trump backed Bondi publicly on his Truth Social account, praising her for doing a fantastic job and the perfect administration that produced the files. But his base rejected her outright. In an interview with Piers Morgan, former CIA officer John Kiriakou explained why he thinks the Epstein files are being dealt with in this way.
The accusation is that he was an access agent for the Israelis, and that's something that the intelligence community really doesn't like to touch. Why upset the balance over one dead pedophile? Isn't it easier just to cover it up?
And leading this army of worried MAGA warriors is conservative commentator Tucker Carlson, who, during his speech at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in Florida, criticized Trump for shutting down questions about Epstein amid allegations of the deceased sex offender's links to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
You have the former Israeli Prime Minister living in your house. You have had all this contact with the foreign government. Were you working on behalf of Mossad? Were you running a blackmail operation on behalf of foreign government?
And then he went even further and added,
by the way, every single person in Washington, D.C. thinks that. I've never met anyone who doesn't think that.
It is true that former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak also met with Epstein multiple times and went into business with him. Victims say Epstein forced them to meet Barak and other influential figures. Alan Dershowitz, a Netanyahu ally and Epstein's lawyer, ties the scandal directly to Israeli political power. And the claims about Epstein's links to Israel go even further. Many investigative journalists who have written about Epstein, such as Julie K. Brown, who is perhaps the most renowned for bringing him down, have also written about his alleged links to Israel. His close ties with Robert Maxwell have been emphasized, a media tycoon deeply connected to Mossad, pointing towards the Israeli intelligence thread. Epstein's relationship with Maxwell's daughter Ghislaine allegedly puts him at the center of this covert network. Maxwell's mysterious death has already raised questions. One recent tweet pointed out, after Ghislaine Maxwell's dad died, presumably after falling naked off his yacht, the funeral included at least 6 Israeli spy chiefs, plus Tony Blinken's stepfather. And then, at the same time, Newswire was quick to point out that the Daily Mail had reported Maxwell willing to reveal Jeffrey Epstein's client list, but is being blocked by congressional Republicans. And so it seems, Epstein's crimes could extend beyond personal depravity, with many questioning if he could be part of a sophisticated Mossad intelligence campaign to gain leverage over US political and financial elites.
Today, Maxwell serves her sentence, steadfastly refusing to testify further. Yet the shadows of Epstein's reach linger. Rumors swirl. Was Epstein truly dead, or is he an asset quietly protected? How far did political cover-ups go, and who benefited? Figures like Trump, Clinton, and other high-profile individuals inevitably become part of the conversation, not through proven wrongdoing, but through the inevitable proximity of influence. Investigations continue, questions persist, and the world remains unsure. Did justice truly prevail, or was it merely a performance on a stage controlled by the powerful? As we stare into the labyrinth of connections, one truth remains: not everything is as it seems, and the unanswered questions may prove more dangerous than the facts themselves.
You're telling me that we don't have the video of Epstein killing himself and that we're all just supposed to expect that this guy who we know, all those people who are in the admin now, my friends, they know Epstein was intel. They know he was tied to our intel. They know he was tied to Mossad. They knew he was tied to Saudi. He was a free agent. He was willing to go.
And British intelligence.
Yeah, and he was willing to go and get this compromat at a time when the British and the Israelis and the United States government needed to get people aligned with the Iraq war. And there was a worry that people would drift off and start opposing an increasingly unpopular war in Iraq. And so they got together a bunch of people in academia, politics, media, business, and tried to get them in a compromising situation so that then everyone would stay on board no matter.
The story of Maxwell and Epstein is more than crime. It is a lesson in power, secrecy, and the lengths some will go to manipulate the world around them. From shadowed mansions to boardrooms, from emails to hidden accounts, the reach of this network exposes a truth too many want to ignore. But the narrative is not over. Each revelation brings us closer to understanding. Each question reminds us that vigilance matters. What do you think really happened behind closed doors? Who knew, and what did they allow? Subscribe now for more investigative deep dives into the hidden forces shaping our world, and join us as we continue to uncover the untold truths that lurk in plain sight.